Hi, hello, and how are you? That's right, ladies and gentlemen, that Rockwell timepiece says it's time. Time to come on in and get coached up with another edition of the Coach Scott Fields Show. That's right, I continue to be a brand ambassador and thrilled to be sponsored by the Rockwell brand. Go to rockwelltime.com and use the code Coach20 to receive 20% off of all the merchandise there on that website. Like and follow the Coach Scott Fields Show on Facebook. And don't forget to subscribe to that YouTube channel that we've got out there. I appreciate it. If you're listening to us in podcast form today, Dr. Walton and I say turn that knob up. We're about to put that flavor in your ear. Watch us on DBTV Monday through Fridays and also Saturday afternoons, where we have an opportunity to be seen in over 300 million households around the globe. And thank you to the 400,000 loyal followers that we've had. Also, check us out on CSTV on Wednesdays and also out of Chicago. Dr. Walton knows a little bit about Chi-Town and that Rewind Sports 60. No matter how you consume us, I am grateful and I appreciate your continued support. Without all further ado, got to welcome this distinguished gentleman into the show with us today. Dr. Lloyd Walton is with us today, and I'm going to tell you what, you think of growing up in Chicago, being a parade All-American, playing at Marquette University with the famous coach Al Mcguire, being drafted by the Bucks. But here's something awesome. There are less than a handful of individuals who have their doctorate degrees who were former NBA players, and you are looking at one of them now. Dr. Walton, welcome to the show.
Coach Fields, I'm excited to be here. Glad that we finally got a date that works for both of us. I think we started talking about this almost a year ago.
Oh.
And so I'm honored, really, and feel like it's a privilege to be on your show, and I'm excited about it.
I got to tell you what, as any great leader should, you got to own a mistake. And I think we've been talking for about 2 years, 2.5 years to get you on this show. So,
Wow.
hey, I have been, I take full responsibility for not getting you on here sooner, because I feel our viewers and our listeners deserve to have these nuggets that you're going to share today, my friend.
Thank you, Coach. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so let's talk about it. Growing up in Chicago and having that community, talk about growing up in the community that you grew up in and who were the influencers who kind of helped put you on a path to utilize basketball to further your education and to be the servant leader that you are today.
Well, Coach, I think it started with my family, first and foremost. And in regards to my family, they were very educational. They believed that education was something that you must achieve and was one thing that nobody could ever take away from you. Now, when I started going to school and what have you, I found that my gym teachers and men in the community who volunteered their time to coach our baseball team, our track team, our football team, and our baseball team, those men had the greatest influence on me. When I grew up, I was with my aunt and uncle who raised me. They didn't have any kids. And my uncle was an unbelievable example of what it means to take care of your family. He went to work every single day in a factory, came home, and back then, it was quite different. He came home and brought that check to my aunt. And my aunt decided how to cash it, what bills needed to be paid, and what kind of spending money he needed to get. Now, in regards to my sports, wow, there was a family on my block by last name of Weekly, and their dad loved baseball, and he started us out playing baseball. I think it was like 12 of those kids, but they took me in their family, and I played every sport. But I got my beginning because they were friends of mine, and their dad wanted us to start playing baseball, and so we were always walking to the park together, learning how to play baseball. And obviously, some years later, I heard that ball go through the net. And that changed everything.
Hearing that story, Dr. Walton, I think of the Keanu Reeves movie Out of Chicago, Hardball, where you got these group of kids and they're just, coming together and they're learning sports and they're learning life lessons. So was that similar for you and your situation with the baseball?
Absolutely. I mean, when you're kids, you just want to hang out together. I don't think we knew, and I know we didn't know the relevance of so many things that you learn in terms of the characteristics that you use in real life coming from sports. Being accountable, being a team player, understanding time management, all of those kinds of things that we were learning. We just wanted to be out there together. And then we had fun. And I think the camaraderie that I began to understand started with that. We began to play the ball together and just hang out together in every sport. So we were together probably 8 or 9 months out of the year playing sports, let alone walking to school together. And each one of us learned so much from that, and we thoroughly enjoyed it, and it taught us so much.
Yeah, see, I love hearing those stories because I feel like even though I grew up in North Central Indiana, very
Mm-hmm.
similar circumstance to have a community. I had a father figure in my life that, kind of led me, and he was my football coach and baseball coach in the little leagues. And I think teaching those lessons of punctuality and working hard and staying disciplined and being focused and having goals and working hard to achieve those goals, the earlier you learn those in life and you make them applicable to other life lessons, I feel it kind of gives you a pathway to being successful, even though at the time you don't realize it because you're just too young. But some of those habits that were repetitive definitely set you on a path to be successful.
Absolutely, coach. I don't know how it can't, simply because you think about a day in the life of a young athlete that goes to school, comes home, maybe do some chores. Practice is going to start at a certain time. And when you get there, you're going to do certain things at 10 minutes to go, 15 minutes to go, whatever it is. There's a certain regiment that your coach will put you on. And every day you come in and you do that. You're expected to do that. You expect to do your job, whatever it is, no matter how big or how small it is with that respective team. Those are the things that have resonated with me and carried on in my adult life that has helped me tremendously accomplish other things that I want to accomplish in my life.
I love that. I do believe that having a structure, having time frames to work within, I think helps everybody, no matter what walk of life. Whether you're a CEO, whether you're a doctor, whether you're a coach, whether you're a school teacher. No matter what it is you do, I don't care if you're just painting houses or digging ditches. To have that structure and having that roadmap to be successful and being disciplined and staying focused has to help everybody in their walk of life.
It does, coach. And I think about even today. So, in my life today, I have a structure. I wake up. What do? I pray. I meditate. Right. I figure out what am I doing today, and I'll name 3 or 4 things that I have to do. Come downstairs, have my tea. Look at my emails. I get some reading in, and I start my day. Those things that I just shared with you are a must every day. That's my structure. Anything after that is kind of like a bonus. But those 4 things I must do every single day to start my day. That's my structure.
I like it. And having those routines again, thinking about routines, you and I, we have been blessed to have been around some of the top athletes around the globe. And thinking of structure and routine, I'm thinking of a gentleman that I got to work with, Steph Curry, when he was just a rookie coming out of Davidson, and seeing him already do that pre-game routine where he's getting the feel with the ball mastery drills, and then the constant repetition with shooting. It's the same thing in your routine, kind of helps you get yourself going to kind of recharge you, get you refocused. You have your priorities. You know what things you have to get done. Just like you were working on documentaries and things earlier today before you came onto my show. So you're able to prioritize and utilize time management for you.
Absolutely. I mean, we learned that at a very young age, how important our time is, how important the structure of our time is. Now, as a young kid, obviously, we don't necessarily always agree with it or think it's important. But the older we get, we see the value of time management, having a structure, having a plan for your day, just like you do for your week, your month, and for your year, things that you want to accomplish.
I love that, Doc. Man, that's just good stuff. You talked about starting off in baseball, and then you said you heard that snap of the net. About how old were you when you first picked up the basketball and kind of that passion just kind of started flowing through your veins? When did that begin for you? And then did you realize that basketball could be a tool for you to acquire an education?
Well, I want to add one other thing about this baseball thing, and I'll go right into it. But I
Sure.
remember as a kid going to, I think we might have had practice. So we went to the park. And this was one of my first times, going to the park with the guys to practice. And I remember hearing this voice, this growl voice of somebody calling out, drills on the baseball field. And so, I eased around there and I looked at this guy. He had a cigarette hanging out the side of his mouth. He had his hair combed back with a baseball cap on. And everybody was at the edge of their seat listening to him or standing just paying attention to him. Lo and behold, that was Craig Hodges' grandfather. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. And Craig's uncle taught me how to shoot a basketball. But anyway, I digress for a second. So
that's awesome.
Obviously not as good as Craig, but nevertheless, he taught me how to shoot.
Oh.
I think I was in third grade and going to school early one day, and I see these guys passing the basketball around. It was almost, when I finally found out what the Globetrotters was, it was almost like they were passing around like they were in the Globetrotters, just passing them all around, and then one would take a shot. And back then we had chain nets. We didn't have the nylon nets at that point.
That's right.
This was inside. Man, and I heard that ball go through that net. Ting! I was like, I got to learn how to do that. And every day I came a little bit earlier and joined in with them at some point. And I just decided I wanted to learn how to play that game, man. And I did everything I could to learn how to play that game. And we had a great coach in our grammar school. You'll like this. Every Friday we would have practice. I think it was in November. But before you could practice, you had to watch this religious story about God and values and things of that nature. I mean, every Friday. So it wasn't just playing basketball. It was understanding who you were, what you needed to contribute to this world before you dribble the ball. That was every Friday for 1 hour. We did that. That was Mr. Rick Anderson, who really set part of the foundation for all of us to live a subservient life, but a complete life by helping others. My basketball then just kind of took off in terms of loving it. I went on to, junior high school where I had a coach, Bill McGee, who loved the Boston Celtics. And we're little guys, right? He loved the Boston Celtics. And when we would go play a team, he would put the names of the Celtics on our back in tape. You're Bill Russell. You're John Havlicek. I mean, look, all of this is true. We knew nothing about this, but this is how much he loved the Celtics. When I got to high school, I'm sorry, I'm somewhere. When I got to high school, all of a sudden, people started telling me, you can play pretty good, or you should come out for the team. Well, I wasn't necessarily. This is totally disturbing. So I wasn't really sure about it. Now, I have to tell the truth about this. In my community, I think my aunt, uncle, and my mother and grandmother were really concerned about the community, and they wanted me to have a better life. And they decided to send me to boarding school in my freshman year, North Carolina. Obviously, I didn't know what a boarding school was. One, two, I didn't know where North Carolina was. Lo and behold, I go to this boarding school for about 6 months. And I come home and I beg my mom to please let me re-enroll in the high school I was at, which was Bloom High School back then. And she said, "Oh, no, you can't do that. You got 2 classes you got to go back and pass this summer." So I said, "Well, Mom, look, how about if I get 2 A's? Would you let me return to my original high school?" And she said, "Of course," because she knew I couldn't get 2 A's, Coach. Man, I went down to that school in North Carolina in the summer. I worked so hard. I got 2 A's, and I was able to re-enroll in Bloom High School, my original school.
Wow.
And this is where it really changes, though. When I re-enrolled in school, I think August or September, I was at a party in our neighborhood, and a guy came down and he said, "Hey," in the basement, he said, "Hey, there's this white guy outside looking for you." I'm like, what did I do? I'm thinking maybe it's the police, but I didn't do anything. So I didn't have a one-way out. I walked outside, and here's this guy standing over, half shaded, half light on him. And he said, "You know who I am?" And I said, "I've seen you around." He said, "I'm the coach of Mount Carmel High School, and I went by your aunt and uncle's house, and we called your mom in Chicago, and we're going to give you a scholarship to Mount Carmel." Now, look, Coach Fields, I knew nothing about Mount Carmel. It was 30 miles away from where I lived. I didn't know anything about it. I really want to know anything about it. But he said, "Look, get in the car with me. We got to go back to your aunt and uncle's house and talk to your mom and your grandmother in Chicago." So I said, "Well, I'm not going to get in the car with you because I don't know you like that." Okay. But the honest truth, I said, "I'll meet you there." I got about a half a block from home and the lights were on. And so I knew he had been there because my aunt and uncle were older people. I walked in and my aunt said, "Call your mother." And my grandmother answered actually, and she said, "This is the best thing for you. Here's your mom." I'm like, "What's going on?" And my mom gets on the phone and she says, "Son, I did some investigating. This is a great opportunity. We want you to have a great life." I still don't know what the hell is going on, honestly. And I hear the coach saying to my uncle, "Do you have any ties?" So anyway, my mother said I had to go. So I finally get off the phone, and then I realized that the coach was asking my uncle, did he have any ties? Because going to Mount Carmel, which is an all boys school and Catholic, you had to wear a tie. So this man picked me up, coach, every single day and took me to Mount Carmel, 30 miles away, and brought me home after practice. And
Wow.
that was the beginning of the change in my life and what I viewed life and what I wanted out of life. It was all new.
Wow.
I was uncomfortable, but you have to be uncomfortable sometimes to grow. And it changed my life. And some of my friends, used to say, "Man, it saved your life. You were going down the wrong path." Mind you, now I hadn't done anything, I hadn't gotten any trouble. But the bottom line is most of the people in the community had some issues. And so this took me away from that and gave me a new perspective, if you will, about what life could be. And that was
Wow.
a defining moment in my life, to be honest with you.
That's right. And it was a choice, and it's a choice that your mother and your aunt knew was best to change your environment and change your surroundings so you could focus on basketball and sports and education to hopefully do something to be able to come back and be a servant leader for the community.
Absolutely. I mean, that's kind of like what it's about. But as a 14-year-old kid, you don't really understand that.
That's
And I
right.
really didn't understand it. I felt like I was being punished, to be quite frank with you.
Yeah.
Like, you're sitting 30 miles away. You already sent me to boarding school away from all my friends, all my familiarity. Now you're sending me 30 miles away. None of my friends go there. I don't know anybody there. But I was talking to Sonny Parker, former NBA player,
Sonny.
with
Yeah.
just Saturday, and the question became, what would you do differently if you could do it? And personally, what I would do differently is I was listening to those people who knew better than I did in guiding and directing my life early on.
Wow. Dr. Lloyd, that's powerful what you just shared right there. And as you're speaking, there's a quote that keeps resonating in my mind, and I think of Muhammad Ali, where he talks about, you know, the rent you pay is the service that you provide for others here while you're on earth. And I'm hearing your story, and I don't know why that keeps echoing to me, but that's just something that I wanted to share. And your story moved me to share that. And what a powerful thought that Mount Carmel, you're going 30 miles from home, you're with a coach who's picking you up every morning, dropping you off every evening, and then all of a sudden you get to showcase your skills, which leads you to be a parade all-American. When did it kind of hit you that, hey, you know what, this is a safe environment for me, I can use basketball, and I know I have a skill set? When did it just become more of a passion and a purpose for you?
Well, I think that my high school, I had a couple high school coaches. One was Ray Meyer's son, Tom Meyer,
Wow.
and uh, when I first got to Mount Carmel, so we were invited. Basketball players in the city were invited to his dad's camp, Ray Meyer's camp,
At
and
DePaul. Yeah.
getting up there. It was in Wisconsin. Getting up there and now playing with kids outside my community, if you will. I began to say, well, I can play a little bit. And the following year, I went to Coach Mcguire's camp, and I was done after that. Honestly, I mean, I played well. Coach Mcguire showed a film, and I was like, man, this is who I want to play for. I love the way he interacts with his players, all those kinds of things. But when I went back to school for September, my coach, this coach I'm sure you knew too, rest his soul, my high school coach, Tony Baroni.
Oh my gosh, yes. May he
Yeah.
rest in peace. Tony, yes.
Yeah. So he came to my class one day with this magazine. And he opens up the magazine and said, look. So I'm like, okay, I'm looking, and he said, look, look. So I look, and there was my name. It was 20 of us. And I was named a Parade Magazine All-American. I didn't even, I couldn't even believe it. I'm saying, well, coach, what does it really mean? And he's like, you're one of the best players in the country. I'm like, this is crazy. This doesn't make sense. I'm saying to myself, man, how can I be? Um, and then I began to really think about it, coach, like I can go to college. I really can go to college, And I wasn't really strong academically just because I didn't apply myself.
Right.
But, I knew I was smart enough to do the work, but applying myself and doing it was something I hadn't gotten to me yet. But I believed that I could go to any college and play. And I just started getting focused. A little too late, but I got focused. And my dream opportunity came to go to Marquette.
Man, wow. I have a similar story to that because I was the same way. I didn't learn how to study until I got to college. And
Yep.
and I feel bad because it was like, my abilities and just my athleticism, my God-given abilities, I was just able to, get by and coast. And then schoolwork took work, and I had to learn how to study, and I had to learn how to focus on certain subjects. So I get what you're saying there because it wasn't until I got to college that I learned to study. And then I thought to myself, at age 20, if I would have studied half this hard in high school, I could have had an A average, but I didn't. And I hated myself for that because it's like I was just too lazy and didn't even apply it. So I'm glad to hear you say that because you and I have a brotherhood in that.
Yes, yes, yes. A lot of similarities. I mean, once I got focused, it really wasn't that hard.
Yeah,
I just hadn't gotten the habits that I needed, right? And you
there
think
you
about, I'm going 60 miles every day back and forth to school. And when I got home, my aunt would ask me religiously, "Did you do your homework?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, I did it on the way home." I didn't,
go.
I'm sitting in the back. I hadn't done anything, man. But yes, I learned my lesson from doing that though. And going to Marquette was my dream school.
Oh,
It really was because of Coach Mcguire and because they won back then. They'd always had a good team. But it was going to be something special for me to go, 60, 100 miles away from home and play basketball on TV from time to time against this charismatic coach. Oh yeah, I was all in from day one.
well, and I like how you talk about Coach Mcguire. I mean, you talked about him being charismatic. You talked about him being a player's coach. And of course, back in the 70s, I mean, it was the plaid pants and the sports coats. But talk about talk about that influence that Coach Mcguire had on you off the court.
Well, I think everything kind of transferred from the things that he taught during practice and just our individual conversations to real life. Okay. And I remember I alluded to early on about a film that he showed us when we were at the camp.
Yep.
And I remember it was a practice that they had. And he was saying, Bob Lackey, you're going to play better because you're better, because then you're going to go to the pros. But I just want to know, can I get a loan? And, the guys kind of all cracked up. But he went on to say, like, I want everybody to get a chance to move up in their life. So you guys have to share the basketball. The wealth of this game is great, but it's greater for more than just one. And, I kept hearing stuff like that. Coach Mcguire was a psychologist because he had, I think my junior and senior year, we had 7 high school All-Americans. Now, think about this, coach. You saw us play. We didn't get up and down the floor. Can you take these thoroughbreds and make them play like they're donkeys? We walked the ball up the floor. We just ran our plays, and on the defensive end, we got after you. So
Yeah.
we averaged about 55 points a game with guys who came to Marquette all averaging 20 plus points a game. So I keep telling my teammate Bo Ellis, I love what we did, but I think I went to the wrong school. Man, I was too quick to get up and down the floor. You couldn't guard me. Now I'm taking 8 shots a game. Are you kidding me? But I wouldn't change it for the world. It was a great learning tool. Coach Mcguire was the first person that said, and I hear it all the time now, particularly for the last 10, 20 years, whatever, use basketball. Don't let basketball use you. Everybody at Marquette that's on this team is going to get a chance. If you don't finish in 4 years, you're going to be able to come back as long as you're in good standing, and we're still going to pay for your college education.
Wow.
It happened to me. He didn't just say it. It happened to me, and I know so many others it happened to. He was a man of his word. Very, very rigid in terms of his thoughts about how you play the game. He depended on his seniors, and said his seniors had to be the ones to shine because they needed the opportunity, and you'll get your turn when you become a senior. Well, obviously, guys don't even get to be seniors anymore.
Yeah, one and done or less than that sometimes.
Right. So it
Wow.
was just so many different things about our lives and how he felt about us and our communities that we needed, as you alluded to, needed to be able to go back to the community and be an example for those younger than us to be able to show them how it's done. And so those things, even to today, I believe in. And I try to, impart those on young guys who play today because that's
Right.
important. If you see what it is, you can believe it. But if you never see it, you don't necessarily believe it. And so that's really, really important for everybody's community and for those less fortunate than yourself.
That's so true. Again, just great nuggets. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here on the Coach Scott Field Show. We got Dr. Lloyd Walton here with us today, and Dr. Lloyd has been a servant leader and a life coach and a speaker, and he's been the founder of a consulting company, and he just gives back in so many ways, and we're blessed and fortunate to have him. 1974, you guys were NCAA runners-up, and talk about what did that teach you to get so close to being, national champions, but yet going against a great team that you had to compete against. Talk about those memories and what lessons did you learn from that?
Well, we were ranked probably 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 throughout the year. We lost a close one against Minnesota and Michael Thompson and the late Flip Saunders.
Yep.
Okay, went up there and they beat us at the buzzer. But after that game, that was the first time, maybe the only time, Coach Mcguire said, "You guys are really good. You could do something special." And we worked really hard at it. We believed we could. And the closer we got to tournament time, because back then we were independent, so independent didn't get an automatic bid. You remember? So it wasn't but a number of schools that were independent that could get the bid. Notre Dame was one, Marquette, DePaul, Loyola, schools like that, Xavier. So when we got our bid, Coach told us the only way that you will not win is if you don't play hard and stay focused. So we go through the tournament. I think the first time we played was against Ohio University, and I can't think of the kid's name, but he was a super talented kid. And we wind up winning by 9 points. Okay. Then we go on and we play. Whoever we play, we get to the Final Four. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
We get to Kansas. Okay. Kansas is loaded. But our eyes are not on Kansas. Our eyes are really on the perennial winners, UCLA. And right? Because UCLA won every year practically.
That's right.
So if you were special, you needed to beat UCLA. So our focus was really UCLA, even though we had to play Kansas. But the game before ours was UCLA and North Carolina State. Now, people don't realize, it wasn't that much TV. We didn't know much about the ACC. In fact, we didn't know anything really about the ACC. Well, we watched the game, and we were disappointed that UCLA lost to North Carolina State. Now, we also realized that David Thompson, Tom Burleson, and Monty Toe was going to be a handful. Okay?
I'm an Indiana boy, so I know little Monty Towel.
Okay. So the game time come for the championship, and we were excited about it. We really felt we could beat them. we were playing we were playing well. Let me put it that way. And they were playing well. About a minute to go in the first half, one of their players takes a shot, and Bo Ellis snatches it out the air.
Ooh.
They call goaltending. Coach Mcguire loses it. They call it technical. So they make that. The next play, something else happens. He gets another technical, or one of our players get another technical. So the bottom line is we win in halftime. Instead of being 1 down, now we're 8 down. And to be honest, it took me 30-something years, Coach. I want to say 34 years to watch the film.
Oh.
And I can tell you that they deserved to win. They came out that second half and just laid it on us, and we had nothing. We couldn't answer the bell. We just didn't. They were different. Yeah, they were different.
Well, I'm trying to think now. Again, I'm trying to use recall here by not looking it up. But Coach Al Mcguire against what? Coach Norm Sloan? Was that the coach of North Carolina State at the time? Wow.
Yep.
Oh, man. How about those days? So it took you 30 years to go back before you could actually watch that film because it broke your heart so much.
Well, yeah, and it was 2 times that happened. Okay, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but yeah. I just couldn't, like, you got it. And I didn't play well. I think I scored 9 points, but I didn't play well. We had Maurice Lucas, Earl Tatum. Okay, so we had some All-Americans, some stars and what have you. But what happens when you're young and you get to the championship, when you lose, you always think you're going to come back and be there again. Yeah. So I just felt like we'll be back. And we got very close. I can tell you about that later. We got very close, but it was an unbelievable experience. We're playing in Greensboro, North Carolina against North Carolina State. Okay, we're playing in their backyard, right? Everywhere we went, people were talking about NC State. You can't stop DT. It was, and look, we had no chance, but we thought we did.
The Skywalker. Woo.
Yes.
I love it. Dr. Lloyd, I love these stories because, again, to know where people are going, you got to know where you've come from. And to hear your journey and have you passionately share it, I kind of get goosebumps because it's like I'm living it vicariously through you. So great job with the storytelling. And then, of course, when your NCAA days were completed, wow. I think your first NBA game was like November 3rd of 1976. You're with the Milwaukee Bucks. A young Don Nelson was the assistant coach with the Bucks at that time. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're correct. Can I give a lead in, give a little more context?
Please.
Okay, all right. So let's go back to college. Okay, so Maurice Lucas goes pro, right? After that team that played against North Carolina State, which he should have went pro. We weren't that good the next year. Still ranked, pretty high. But we didn't do very much in the tournament. Kentucky, Rick Roby, and those guys beat us down. Okay, straight beat us down. But the following year, my senior year, we're loaded. We are loaded. Okay, we're playing. We're number 2 in the country, and from your home state, Indiana's ranked number 1. We're ranked number 2, and we were on a collision course. Okay, tournament time comes. The most asinine thing you could imagine happened by the NCAA. They put Indiana and Marquette in the same region.
Oh.
Come on, why would you put the number 1 team and number 2 team in the same region to play against each other, right? You want them to play for the championship.
That's right.
We knocked off every team we needed to knock off. We got to the regional championship. They got to the regional championship. And I'll tell you, how strict Coach Knight was.
Oh,
and how
boy.
And how loose we were off the court. On the court, we were very disciplined. And I remember us being, we were in Louisiana, and I remember us going for a walk one day in the mall. And Indiana's coming one way, and we're going the other way. And they all had on their blazers and their shirts and ties. And we had on our polo shirts and stuff like that. Look, hey, Coach, they looked at us and said, we don't want to be like them. And we looked at them and said, we don't want to be like them.
A clash of cultures.
Right. And Quinn and I, we lived like 10 minutes from each other. So we knew each other very well.
Quinn Buckner.
Yes, Quinn Buckner.
Yeah. So it would have been Kent Benson, Quinn Buckner, that group.
Scott May, Bobby Wilkerson. I have a picture. I'm waiting for Bo to bring it to me. Seriously. I have a picture of the jump ball.
Wow.
In that game. And the pitcher and the jump ball, all 10 players were drafted and went to the NBA.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
Tom Abernathy was on their team, but we had, Earl Tatum, we were loaded too. As the game I got hurt in the game prior to that. I got hit in the calf really, really bad. I was getting treatment 24 hours. I wasn't 100%, but I was good enough to play, and I wanted to play, and I played. Nip and tuck all the way. And even though they were kind of controlling, it was nip and tuck. In the second half, with about 10 minutes to go, we made a good run. And the late Bernard Toon, who just passed away about a year ago, a little less, he makes a steal on Bobby Wilkerson, right? And we're down one. And, I just know this is it. He makes a steal, and instead of stopping and giving it to me, he makes a move and he loses it, and they come back and score.
Oh.
It's one of those things that, it just happens. It wasn't like anybody ever intentionally did something, and we still might not have won the game. But that was the turning point for us. And again, another 30 plus years before I could watch that. And when I watched it, again, I have to say, they took it to us in the second half defensively. They just did. So
wow, great story. I mean, but you think of it, that little detail, the little momentum swinger, just by making that layup could have changed the outcome because of momentum and, the emotions of the game. And we know how important momentum is in the game of basketball.
Absolutely. But then you want to get on to the Bucks. Well, I'll tell you, I was told coming out my senior year that I was going to go in the late first round, early second. And I have to add this little story. Back then, there was this guy who was an agent in Chicago, had all the big time players around the country. And he had a runner, somebody to go out and entice young guys to come to this agency. And that runner was none other than Jerry Krause.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Jerry Krause from April till 2 weeks before the draft called me every other day practically. You hear me? Every other day. So I'm excited. I'm working hard, preparing for the draft, because they didn't have the workouts like they have now with players.
Yeah, the pre-draft camps and yeah.
Yeah, they didn't have any of that. So about 2 weeks before the draft, Jerry Krause is named general manager of the Chicago Bulls.
Yep.
Coach, I'm like, hey man, even if I go second round, I'm gonna be playing at home. I'm going to the Bulls, right? So, as it would have it, draft day comes. They take Scott May, their first pick. I think Scott was player of the year, was a good pick, solid pick. The second round, so I know I'm going in the second round, but I'm out. I'm not even at the home. I don't want to even be at home. I'm too nervous. I find out when I get home, they take Willie Smith out of Missouri. And I can't believe that Jerry Krause, who has courted me for 4 months, would not take me. So the 40th pick comes along, and Milwaukee takes me. When I get home, my mom says, "Hey, Wayne Emery called, and they picked you, they drafted you," and I'm torn. I'm so ambivalent. I don't know what to do. Going to Milwaukee, where I went to school, is cool, but I was supposed to go higher. What happened? Right?
Wow.
And Milwaukee was a good thing. Milwaukee was in a rebuilding year. All their stars were gone. Kareem had went to LA.
Right.
Oscar had retired. The only person left was Bobby Dandridge.
Bobby Dandridge. Wow. Yeah.
Right. But they were loaded at guard. They had about 6 or 7 guards. Big Jim Price from Louisville, Gary Brokaw from Notre Dame, Brian Winters from South Carolina. And then they took, I didn't say this, the Bucks took number 1 pick was Quinn Buckner.
Cute.
And then they take me. I'm like, what the hell is going on, man? I got to fight with Quinn. Are you kidding me? And Quinn has just come off of the USA Olympic team winning a gold medal. So anyway, Larry Costello was the coach. You remember Larry Costello?
Yeah.
Costi was old-fashioned, man. He had a playbook that was almost as thick as the NFL playbooks, man. I'll never forget, we're in practice one day, and he would just call on you. And he called on me one day and says, "Hey, Walton, what do you do when we run 33B on the left side?" and you get all these veterans in the background laughing and smirking, and I'm like, oh my God, oh man, I blew my chance, right? So that night, I went to Costello's room, knocked on the door, and he answered, said, "What do you want?" I said, "Coach, I know all the plays, man. I froze." He said, "I know you know the plays, but you got to be able to perform when the lights are on and those stands are filled." I said, "Coach, I'll never forget another play. I'll always respond." And that taught me a lesson. You got to be ready all the time. And I went on and did that. Anyway, we started the season. We're terrible. I mean, Coach, we're terrible. I think we lose 13 straight, right? So then they fired Costello. And Nelly's our assistant coach. And I'll never forget it. I can see it right now. We're at practice. We heard Costello got fired. And here comes Nelly walking through the door. And Nelly looks at all of us and said, "It's a new beginning. The such and such has hit the fan." Okay. So, he told us that, we were going to lose some games, but we were going to start gaining the respect around the league that let teams know that they weren't going to come play the Bucks and it was going to be easy. He said, everybody's going to get in better shape. We're going to play better team basketball. And we did. Everything that he said, we did it the way he asked for us to do it. And I was there for, 4 years. It was great. We had some great runs. Playing, your childhood dream. For me, a childhood dream, and be able to realize your childhood dream is something special. I don't care what career it is, but it was special,
Yes.
And with friends and all that kind of stuff, man. Back then, there was 285 players in the league. 285. So to be one of the 285, that's a very, very, very special, esoteric kind of group.
That's right. That's an elite 1% right there. That's that fraternity. Huh?
Absolutely. You look at it now, there are 450 players that we have now in the NBA. But more importantly, in the 75-year history of the NBA, there's only been 4,706 men to play in the NBA. And that's including guys who've only played one game.
Right.
Right?
Wow. Yep.
So for me, my life in obtaining goals has been very, very special. And I take none of that for granted. None of that for granted. I worked hard to get there. It was a special time in my life, but I always heard what Coach Mcguire said: use basketball, don't let it use you. And so when things come to an end, whether it's diminishing skills, whether it's some kind of money haggling or whatever it is, or injury, you got to try to prepare yourself for an inevitable ball stop bouncing. And that's kind of what I do today.
That's right.
I work hard there for 25 years. Go ahead, Coach. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I want to get into that because the things you're doing today, like you said, at some time, the ball's going to stop bouncing for everybody. The popcorn's going to stop popping. The shoes are going to stop squeaking. And what are you going to do? And here's where you have excelled by being a guy who continues to this day to be a senior counselor for the National Basketball Association. Talk about your role in that and how you flourish in that role.
Well, I'll say this: I've been doing this for 25 years. And when I first took the job, I had been an executive for a couple of organizations here in Chicago. But going back to your roots and your passion is something different. It was something that I couldn't turn down. I didn't want to turn down. I wanted to be a part of basketball space again. So I was hired as a counselor. And when I started, the whole focus of career was to help players go back to school to get their degrees. And so, we were successful to a degree, but most players at that point in time said I didn't. And I remember one player telling me, I won't even mention his name, said when I told him about you can go back to school, he's like, "Lloyd, I hated school when I was there and I ain't going back," right? But then we had other players that said, "You know what, I'll take a class, can you set me up with a class," and things of that nature. And so we've evolved now. Because most players are leaving school so early before they even get to school, right? They're not really making education as important in their life as we did. Now, there are a lot of players that still are. Ray Allen just graduated with his, and we helped him. Our group helped him. J.R. Smith is in school, right, working on his degree. Because the other thing about it is that most of our kids are not going to play professionally, right? But the other example that we have to give is how important education is. And it's hard to tell your child how important it is if you don't have your degree. I mean, that's kind of like how I look at it. So we've evolved now to helping players find their passion besides basketball. For example, I was sharing with you that we just had our real estate program, and I'm proud to lead that. We're in Los Angeles. I leave Sunday for our real estate program in Miami. We have a technology program that follows me. On the 25th, they're doing it on the 26th. We just had our broadcasting program. And most of the players that you see on TV, including Shaq, went through our broadcasting program, okay? Because we know that you have other passions, and we want to help you get there. So we have these programs, and these programs were developed not because we said so, but because we went to players and said, "What are you interested in?" And players said, "I want to be in broadcasting," or "I want to do real estate." The funny thing about when they said real estate, I said, "Well, what do you want to do in real estate?" "I want to flip houses." I said, "Well, that's too easy, man. There's a whole lot of things you can do in real estate." So we create and develop these programs with experts in those industries. And so we've had these programs for the last 10 to 15 years. And we tell players, man, honestly, I'll give you some stats why it's so important. 50% of our players are out of the league in 5 years.
Yep.
So if we got 450 players, 225 are gone in 5 years. The average playing career is 5 years. It's 4.6, but we call it 5 years. Every year, 20% of our players are out of the league. That means 90% of the players are gone that was there the year before. And since 2009 and 2010, only 36 players are left.
Wow.
These are the same kind of stats I shared this year with our players when I met with every team, me and my peers. And players are surprised at it. And they started thinking about players who were couldn't miss kind of guys, who are going to be Hall of Famers and play 10, 12 years. They're no longer there. Yep. That's why it's so important that players begin to understand and prepare for the inevitable. Ball stop bouncing. Yep. You're more than just a basketball player. Basketball is what you do. It's not who you are. Let's find out what your other passion is so we can guide and direct you and introduce you to these people, and you can make a head start. Because if you make a head start while you're playing the game, the transition is going to be almost seamless. If you don't, it's almost starting all over. And I'll tell you why it's starting all over. Because I have players who don't take advantage of programs, etc. Once they're out of the league, and they're calling me like crazy. And my first response always is, in a playful manner, "Why weren't you paying attention when I came and met with your team? I'm going to get to you, but it's going to take a little while because I have the present day players that I have to get to first." So we encourage our guys to make some decisions early outside of the game that you love and create the life that you want to live when the ball stops bouncing and the game is over for you.
That's right. I mean, think about it. You're gonna live another 45, 50 years, good Lord willing, and then what are you going to do to provide for yourself and utilize that time structure that you have to broaden your portfolio with business opportunities, networking opportunities, whether it be broadcast, whether it be real estate, whether it be entrepreneurship. So it's so important that these relationships that we build as we play basketball, coach basketball, that it leads into something that you can do the rest of your life and be fulfilled and still be a community, leader and give back to these communities, because so many people will leave the communities and never go back and take care of home. And that's kind of sad too, Dr. Walton.
No, that's real sad. You owe it to yourself. The old saying, "To whom much is given, much is expected." And, there's a group of young men that would always love to do what you do, but they also will follow what directions you give them. You got to go back and you got to pull them up. You got to give them some inspiration. You got to inspire them to do better, even if it's not sports. I think about this game and how it's evolved and what it gives you today. You can meet anybody that you want. A couple of things that we always tell our players. You should know, and you can get the list of everybody who sits on the floor at the games. Go up and introduce yourself. There's one thing about successful people. They always want to tell you how they got there, and they always usually are people who wanted to play sports that couldn't. That's a conversation that starts that's endless. We've had players do it 1,000 times. Get the season ticket holders list. Find somebody that's doing something that you're passionate about or that you want to know more about. They're going to want to meet with you.
That's right.
They're going to want you to tell. You're going to tell each other stories about how you became a basketball player. And then you want to find out how did they become an entrepreneur or business owner. It's give and take. You can meet anybody you want. You have to take advantage of these opportunities. There are people that would pay thousands of dollars to get these kind of opportunities. That's right there in your hand. Don't let it pass you by.
Yeah. Amen. I mean, and think about it, Dr. Walton, you know this. Sitting around the table with success is a far different conversation than sitting around the table with struggle. And if you have success, you utilize this platform, Dr. Walton, to help, to help yourself grow and evolve so you can give back and help others and light the torch and pass the torch and inspire someone else and light their candle. Because Dr. Walton, you do it better than most. And that's why it's an honor to have you here on this show. We've only got a couple more minutes, but I mean, you were the founder of a life coaching company. You've done multiple things. I mean, you were even the executive director of James Jordan Boys and Girls Club in Chicago. But what advice would you give to the basketball player out there or the young athlete who's looking to be an entrepreneur and be successful? What kind of nuggets would you share with them?
Couple of things, Coach. First of all, I want all young people and people in general to realize that most of us always think we have more time.
Oh.
I know this firsthand from my own experiences and what have you. The other thing is, to get something you never had, you have to do something you've never done.
Amen.
Okay? You have to. I don't care who you are. In order to try something and want something, you have to understand that you're not going to be comfortable. Comfortable is easy. Comfortable is something that you're too familiar with, that you know already. And I tell guys to think about when the first time you started playing basketball, were you great? Nobody can say yes. Nobody can say yes, right? You struggled to learn the game. You struggled to be good. You struggled to be on your high school team. There's going to be some struggle in a new industry, right? Take the struggle and learn from it and don't stop. Success for most people is because they didn't stop. It's not because they didn't struggle. They didn't stop when things got hard. And I think about this all the time. Going back to school to get a doctorate was not easy. There were days I was up to 4 or 5 in the morning. I was thinking to myself, who told me to go do this? I don't understand this, right? But I refused to give up. I took the same attitude when I first went out on that court and those guys were throwing that ball around and somebody shot it. I'm going to struggle, but I'm going to get it. I am going to be determined. I'm going to be focused. I'm going to be accountable for my actions and doing what I need to do to be successful. Me, not anybody else. If I want it bad enough, I'm going to do something different than I normally do.
Wow. Dr. Walton, that is powerful nuggets, probably the best 2 minutes of the entire show, and we should have led into that sooner. But I'm going to tell you what, embrace the struggle, and I heard the key word, perseverance, but holding yourself accountable, right? Such key things that need to happen there. Dr. Walton, God bless you, my friend. It's so great to have you on there. We need to have you come back and enrich lives and empower others. Because I know there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be inspired by this content. So we got to share this content. We need to welcome you back. But God bless you on your path. You're doing amazing things. And our society needs more Dr. Lloyd Waltons, my brother.
It was an honor and a privilege. Thank you so much for inviting me. Coach Fields, anytime you want me to come back, let me know, and we'll make it happen.
Let's do it, brother. God bless you on what you're doing. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is Dr. Lloyd Walton, one of the best of the best. And hey, there's only a handful of guys who have played this game professionally who have got a doctorate, and you've been speaking with one of them right here. Dr. Walton, God bless you.
Thank you, Coach. Take care.